Joining us now in a CNBC exclusive, Ursula Burns, former Xerox Chairman and CEO. She was also the first Black female CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Ursula, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us. How have you been processing all of this and watching the last few days unfold from where you are in London?
It's been very, very troubling. I left the United States on Memorial Day and arrived here the next day. And right after I landed, all hell broke loose, unfortunately. It's very difficult to be far away. It's very difficult to hear and process all of the information through the news media and through interested parties who are my family in town. One of the things that I'm getting comforted by is the amount of engagement and interaction that companies are having, that businesses are having, that senior executives are having, that people with power and influence are having in engaging and offering their voices to this level of discourse in a very organized way, understanding that we still have so much to do to actually make progress in this area, to make this situation, this explosion, not be just another explosion that happens once every year or so. So I think that, it's comforting to see that, but it's also a little disconcerting to be so far away from home.
Sure. A part of it is there is a growing awareness of the inequalities in our system, in our economy. Ursula, I know a little bit about the hurdles that you had to overcome personally and professionally in your life. Can you share some of your story and what that tells us about the opportunity out there for African Americans in rising to the top?
I mean, it's my story is, I think, typical of the start of many African Americans in the nation. I had a very, very poor upbringing, single mother, focused human being, though, focused on education, did all of the right things to lay a foundation for me. And she really looked for opportunities for me and my brother and my sister to actually engage in a positive way in society. So she took advantage of a lot of the programs that were out there to engage us in higher education, in better educational opportunities, in cultural opportunities, et cetera. A lot of these things are being dismantled and destroyed by the current administration. But nonetheless, back then they were there and we took advantage of them. And I think one of the things that we have to be aware of is that with a good start, a solid start, that with a good opportunity, it is possible to succeed, right? So one of the reasons why I come on shows like this is to show that I'm a fairly ordinary human being who had a very good start from a very bad place and was able to be successful there. And one of the things that happened for me is that I had in business, when I entered Xerox Corporation, I entered into a company that already had a sensitivity, an awareness around the differences and the positive differences that African Americans and women and the like could contribute. Part of the reason for that is that we had African Americans on the board. We had African Americans who did participate in my success at a board level. And it was one of the things that's very important that we have to continue to push in America and in business. And we started off by, why is there such this imbalance and injustice? It's because look at the boards before you look at even the companies. Look at the boards. Most of the boards still have 0 or 1 African American on the board. And that, I think, that pressure in that area can help to speed up progress and transitions for companies. And then and starting from the bottom as well. But I think you really have to start looking more seriously at board composition and ensuring that we have the presence of difference on the board, a direct voice on the board.
But beyond the board changes, which, yes, we've been starting to scan some of these companies, and it is really shocking to see how few Black representation there are in terms of the directors. What else would you like to see companies do to seize the moment beyond, the statements we're getting, the show of support in a way that we haven't seen before? Many companies even voicing support for Black Lives Matter. What kind of meaningful action and solutions do you want to see come out of that?
Companies are a composite of human beings. Companies must be interested, concerned, active, vocal about how their communities, how their structures in their communities are run. So policing in their communities, they have to have a point of view and make that clear about what good policing looks like. Schools in their community, they have to start to participate above and beyond the level that they have been participating in. There was a time where literally a conversation outside of direct shareholder value was almost thought of as being a bad CEO. Now I think that the pendulum is starting to swing, and we're starting to realize that this is a basket of good that we have to start to create. So to your question very directly, we have to look at schools in the neighborhoods and in the United States. We have to look at schools from K through 12 all the way through to colleges and universities. We have to look at how policing is done. We have to look at the leadership. How do we intake people? We have to be affirmative about the way that we approach hiring. Because if you just go out and do it naturally, we see what the outcome is. I mean, it's been that outcome for the last 100 years where we actually underhire, underpromote. We have to become affirmative in approaching the problem. And business leaders have to start to lead. What has happened in the past, they've trailed. Citizens have been the ones who've taken to the streets and started to scream about bad behaviors, either bad policing or bad policy. Businesses can actually be either partners with them, and in the ideal sense, they could lead some of this discussion. They could become positive forces in the community, and they can speak about it. There are some business leaders who are doing it already, who are very active and doing it already. And if we can just continue to add to this population where it becomes the norm, not the exception, where we don't wait for yet another killing of an African-American by a policeman before we actually start to jump up. We literally have to engage more as companies, as interested, invested people in the communities that they do business in around the world, but primarily in the United States.
So I wanted to ask about what you just alluded to in part of that answer, about this persistent dearth of senior leaders of color across America's largest companies and Europe and everywhere's largest companies. Why is that so persistent when there has been voices calling for progress there for so long? Do we need to see hard, arbitrary targets to actually make that change?
I've actually started to switch my thinking a little bit around targets. I was totally against them, and now I'm starting to really investigate and think about whether this would be helpful. And let me tell you the reason why. If you are left to self-police yourself forever and you fail continuously, then you may earn the role, you may invite supervision. And so what I think we have to do is make sure that companies are on the call that if they don't make an improvement in this area, representation, like the communities and the customers that they have, like the world, if they don't have representation, that they will be subject to forced injection of a process to get more representation. I think that is, I used to be dead set against it, but I've been around now for 30, 40 years, and we still have made very little progress. You said it. We have 4 black CEOs in the Fortune 500. That can't be so. There has to be more than 4 of us who are qualified to do these roles. So I think we may be switching. I think we're at the last step of what I call voluntary compliance. If we can't start to improve this representation for women and for blacks, then I think that we may be forced to do what Europe has done, or is about ready to do, or is doing, which is to say you have to have this many women on your board of directors. You have to have this kind of representation. It would be a really sad state if we get there, but if we don't do it voluntarily soon, I would be marching down the streets to say, yes, we should do it by edict.
Ursula, is there any opportunity for the private sector to work with government, with the current administration? I mean, we've seen collaboration before in terms of CEO meetings. I mean, is there an opportunity for engagement at all?
I do hope so. I will be really frank. I don't believe that we'll make a lot of progress with the current administration. I just don't believe so. But I will not give up hope that there is some conversations that could be useful, some conversations to be had. The current administration is not is not interested, does not appear to be interested in inclusion, in diversity, in equity, in fairness, and giving people a chance. But if there's a way that somebody can break through and do that, I think I wouldn't stop trying, that's for sure. I think that businesses are proving now, the discussions are happening now, that even without support from the administration, that they can make change. That at the state level, they can definitely do it, because we definitely have some governors who are lined up and aware of the risk that this country is running with the barbarism that we actually are showing to each other, with the total uncaring approach that we have by administration, with the lack of accountability and responsibility. I think that people are starting to realize that we may be going a little bit too far in this discourse. And so I think if we can do something with the administration, God bless, or whatever you pray to bless. But I wouldn't count a lot on it, but I would not give up there. I would literally say, okay, we have other people that we could partner with. We can partner with police chiefs. We can partner with governors, with mayors. We can partner with localities. We can partner with ourselves to make progress on making the nation a better place. That's the whole point here. It's not about a zero-sum game and I'm going to get more from you and therefore you have less. This is about making progress as a nation. And I think that we see a market exploding. I was listening before I got on this segment. We see a market exploding, and still very small percentage of the population is participating in that. There has to be enough in that big trillions of dollars that literally can set people up for a better chance, for an opportunity to have a better life, and literally not use the resources to continue to squelch, to push down people who have already been pushed down and excluded from participation. I'm hoping that that's the case. I don't hold out a lot of hope for the administration, but I think, hey, like I said, if people can do it, go for it.
Yeah, and only made worse by the current pandemic with COVID-19 and the disproportionate effect it's had.
The pandemic could have been, I'm sorry for it, it could have been an opportunity. It could have been an opportunity for us to step back and literally try to figure out a way to structure a more inclusive society. Right? Because what the pandemic did show us is that these people that we now so gracefully call critical workers, we didn't give a hoot about before. We fought about even giving some of these guys a minimum wage. They have now become part and parcel, key to our existence in this pandemic phase. We could have literally used this opportunity, I think we still can, to have a different conversation between the worker and the employer. Literally a different bargain, a grand bargain that's more inclusive, that is more even, that's more balanced. And I'm hoping that the last couple of days of destruction, quite honestly, is looked at as a fire, a lighting a fire under this set of discussions that we have to have about repurposing, reorienting the way that the United States works. I am one of the 1%. And I still worry when I am approached by a police person. I still worry. We have to get these kinds of things, these kinds of hidden bombs kind of to the surface and work on them, like we work on lots of other problems, like we're working on the pandemic, a solution to that. We're pulling together resources, we're funding it. We have public-private partnership. The same thing with some of the social injustices that we have in this world and in the United States. We can work on it the same way. This is not a problem that's unsolvable. It's one that we shy away from and we forget quickly, right? This will pass. We'll wait for the next killing of a black man by a policeman, and then we'll have an uproar again. And I'm hoping that this is not the phase that we're going into now, that we're not going to quiet down. Everything is going to go back to normal. Everybody's going to go back into their houses, and we're going to actually wait for the next explosion. That can't be the way it is. I'm hoping that pandemic plus really a social disaster comes together to give us the opportunity, us, America, the opportunity, and Donald Trump, quite honestly, those three things come together to give us an opportunity to rethink about what I call the grand bargain.
Let's hope. It feels that way. Ursula Burns, stay close. Thank you so much.